Hello, welcome to Being Reintegrated. This is Tim Wright. So I am very happy to have released the book by Frères d'Orient, Becoming the Vision. You'll see it. It's a really, really good book. But what I'm going to do is give my Patreon subscribers information that is basically interpretive about the book. So um, I want to write, but I'm not a good writer. I'm a good lecturer. I'm good at presenting information, but I'm not very good of a writer myself. So that's why I don't really do writing. But I am a bookmaker. So here's where the rub is. Here is an instructional course on what we're doing here in the Frères d'Orient book, which is available. Now, it took me a moment to get here because I didn't want to mess up this stream, but this is just my interpretation of the Frères d'Orient, what's called sadhana. And that is like a meditative experience that the Indians have. Indian tantric yogis. Now, you should know I have a background in religious studies, not officially with any school, but I am very autodidactic and I did learn a lot of this stuff. So, essentially, what we're doing, I'm going to throw out a bunch of terms, but I'm going to try to explain it. And if you know what it is, you'll be able to go, yeah, that's what it is. So, I've been working with Craig Williams, as you know, and he is the author of Tantric Physics Volume 1 and 2, the Meditations in the Desert, Entering the Desert, The Cult of Golgotha. I mean, amazing author. He's going to be producing a 3-volume alchemy series. Very similar to David Gordon White, but more in the Aghora tradition. So I'm very grateful to bring him in as a specialist in Indian and Eastern Illuminism. I am pretty much a specialist in Western Illuminism, but he knows his stuff when it comes to the Vajrayana, the all of the Indian stuff, which is way beyond my pay grade. I don't understand a lot of it. But anyway, we've been chatting, and so we've come up with a kind of view of the sadhana of the Frères d'Orient, which you can go buy on Amazon. I didn't make it restricted. I just haven't really provided the link because it's a very rare book. They were mainly lectures that are given to bishops in the tradition, so many people don't have it. But in addition to the actual sadhana, which starts on, I think, page 47. Yeah, 47. There's also a lecture by Similas on initiation that I included that comes from Similas materials. So it's pretty profound stuff. Anyway, so these comments are basically on the not cult, what does he call it? I don't want to say it wrong because I just want to make sure that I'm saying it right. The union with the Black Madonna and Child. Now, one of the most amazing things I found about this is that he calls the Black Madonna Kali Ima, the Holy Mother of the Templars, and the Black Sun Kali Shemesh. So it's mixing Indian systems with the Hebrew. Whoever did it knew what they were doing, and they were very, very smart. I got to tell you that. Now, what I did was I went into my uvwa of stuff, and basically what we're looking at is that these names, the Black Madonna, is a group of terms called, oh God, I just got to get my note. This one I did do notes on because, I mean, it's very difficult stuff to talk about, but it's called Mahavijaya. Craig talked to me about it. Basically, what the Black Madonna or Kali energy is the Mahavijaya. Each Mahavijaya has powers. So when it still has the delusion of the Western mind, which is to invoke an individuality. It's not an individuality. This is one thing we need to learn. And this is something I'm trying to help with. But there are no such things as individualities in the spiritual realms. That's the first thing. If you're in your higher self, if you're in all this stuff, you're not in an individuality. That's the first line of demarcation, how you can know if someone is just ego inflated or whether or not they're actually talking about spirit. Spirit requires anonymity of your individuality in order to enter into the gate of what we're talking about here. And they call this the Path of the Dragon, Now, this book, like I said, is very well researched. We could go into any one of these, but this is on page 50 of the actual sadhana. And what it talks about is a method that you use to approach this Path of the Dragon, which they then call Gyodhe Volve. Now, the Path of the Dragon, we're not going to diabolize any of these forces. It's just to say that, like if you went to a sports game and you had a gun on you, they will not let you into the gate. It doesn't matter how good your gun is. It doesn't matter if you have a license. You're not allowed to go into the arena with a firearm. So they have metal detectors and they take it away from you. So even if you followed the path of the dragon of individuality, how I'm calling it, I could be wrong though. So definitely if you're a master of this stuff, you should be making videos. The path of the dragon, or the individuality that fights others and the individuality that exalts itself over, entities of spiritual hierarchy or whatever. This is where the Dark Mother will allow you to fight the path of the dragon. This is the symbolic Kali cutting the throat of the ego. The individuality has to be encountered, and it's too strong to encounter on our own. And this is one of the beauties of the system itself. So when I was studying all the stuff I studied, I looked at some teachings that were really helpful to me in my early development. And I don't want to mention names. We're just going to talk about the concepts here. So that'll make it a little bit easier to not refute. I'm not trying to say stuff to argue. I'm just saying stuff to try to get it into the record of human thinking, because it really hasn't been said. So we think with our minds, and I do too, that there's an ego that needs to be fought. My ego, this possessiveness over a spiritual force called the ego. And that is the dark personality quirk that causes the problem of me not reaching to my higher. I mean, I know all this stuff. So I've studied psychology from Jung. I studied multiple streams of neurolinguistic programming, on and on and on. So I'm pretty familiar with what's being talked about. And there's stuff I don't know, of course. I have the willingness to admit that there's things I do not know in this realm of psycho-spiritual, emotional, cognitive, psychological development. But I know a lot of it. So that's why we have to get down to brass tacks and say, okay, well, there is an ego, but it's not my ego. It's not a possessiveness. And this is one of the tricks of the system, that when you are able to actually make it through the filtering of your own individual creation called your ego, you can get to what is the ego. And what all egos have in common is that they perpetuate and propagate individuality. Now, if you can face that premise, then you can fall through the individuality floor into what's being talked about in the sadhana. If you can't, then you're going to have a really hard time going through any other material that's in this sadhana, because the union with the Black Madonna and Child requires you to abdicate your individuality. Now, I'm not saying be a cult follower and come after me because I'm going to take your mind. This is just to follow the sadhana. So you can pick your individuality up back in your life and your job, but when you go into the sadhana, you can't go into it with your own individuality, or what is known as the ego. It's a metaphysical constant of individuality that asserts itself to a mind that it's basically part and parcel with a subject. A subject requires an individuality, and that individuality is like the kingly bestowal onto you from the ego, which is a spiritual force. It's not an individual fault. That's one of the problems. The second one is that some of what we teach in these materials is pretty profound, and that's that if there's no individuality, we need a collectivity to battle our own delusion of individuality. And that is why this sadhana is so powerful, because what Kali does essentially is she gets us to approach the throne with our dragon mind, and when we approach the south, the Kali force cuts the dragon mind. It's the only way that can be done. It has to be done on full moon, new moon, so the Dark Mother can approach our dragon, the path of the dragon. It says, "Go south and follow along the path of the dragon. There is a holy palace in the south, in which their holy queen dwells. And there you will find some among their holy order standing guard and in worship." So this is all mythopoetic language, but it's not unknown. Basically, the path of the dragon is whatever individuality pulls you into the Dark Mother, then your individuality is going to be offered there at the temple of the ego. Not your ego, but the ego. You're going to inflate or deflate yourself into an individual's subjective part of the whole. And that is part of the game of this path of the dragon. Now, it's needed for growth and development. And, like I said, I'm not here to disempower people. What I am here, though, is to empower you and show you what happens and why you're pining for and reaching for, just like I am, this Dark Mother. So, in the work that I'm doing called the Wisdoms, plural, to know the difference, I do happen to have a little bit of 12-step recovery behind me, and they have a great program for helping you get into this alchemical work that we're doing now, which is that your individuality is going to be challenged. Anyway, so the wisdoms to know the difference are these Mahavidyas, I think they're called. The Mahavidya is basically the collectivity of the powers of the Dark Goddess. And that is what you're doing when you're approaching the south. You're going to the gate of the Mahavidyas and you're asking them to cut your throat and drain your blood into the cup so they can drink it up. Now, the sadhana does this very well in calling it light. They call the individuality light, and they call the darkness light as well. So this is the beauty of the sadhana, that you must know that he is white brilliance in the center of the black earth, and he is the dark radiance beyond the kingdom of heaven. It's so powerful and profound. And that's why I'm trying to do these videos rather than write a book. I mean, you guys already buy these books. I have it myself. I was just reading out of it. So I'm teaching out of this sadhana text, of which is in alignment with the other stuff that I do, which is the Order des Coens Ressuscités, which you can join. I don't charge any dues for it. You can just go ahead and email Resurrected Coens and we can get you in your instructions. Now, the sadhana, it takes you to the south. So you got to know what all this stuff means. And you got to know what it means to be initiated into this stuff, not to think that you already know what it is. A lot of what has been published already is not true. So the South is one of those dragon powers that is the most vulnerable, the most receptive to the dark goddess. That's what you're doing. We're not taking the entire dragon and we're saying, here, take this dragon and all my life and all my, this is the wrong way. That's not the way you do it. You take the area, the Achilles basically of that dragon path, and you go into the area that it's the most weak, and then you let the Dark Mother in during that most weakness place. Now, the weakness may be your individuality, like me, or it may be your sexuality, like others I have known, or it could be your chemical dependency. Whatever it is, there's an energy that your ego will use to shame you into your individuality. When you get there, that's how you know the weak spot is. That's the spot that needs to be offered up in the South on the new moon to the Dark Mother. That is the area that the individuality is hiding in. This is why some of the Jungian material is so profound, because if you don't look at the negative, if you don't look at the pessimistic, you can't see the positive and the optimistic. This is why my light kids, not my kids, but the light kids out there, they got it down. They have a sensitivity to egoism and self-centered doctrine that they're actually breaking through. Now, they're still stuck in the idea of individualities, but that's why I'm trying to help a little bit here and guiding the individual distorted ego into the collective harmonizing and healing entity. And of course I'm using words, and they say the silence, do the silence. Well, the silence is the spot in the South. If you can get to this weak vulnerability of yourself in the South, then you're in the silence. You're basically listening to the voice of silence, like Blavatsky would say. Now, I know people are going to argue with this, but I wanted to present some of this information to give you. I mean, this is not like the kind of material I normally do. So, there's 10 powers of the Mahavijas. And these are basically the way that the goddess will show herself to you. The dark goddess may use whatever metaphysical constant she may use to get into your individuality. There's a Kali, which is time, death, destruction of ego. But it's not your ego. You don't possess this, and there's a reason why. And if you keep following me, I might tell you, or I might tell you in this video. I don't know how long it's going to go. The next one is Tara. Taraka Shakti, the savior who helps cross the ocean of worldly existence. The next one is Kama Shakti, or Tripura Sundari. And laugh at me, I don't know these words, but what I do know is that these powers were talked about by Maimonides, the Jewish religious Hebraic scholar. Maimonides in the path, A Guide to the Perplexed, gave us these keys. And there's a really good commentary. There's academic stuff all over the place on this stuff, but the mystics are having a hard time with this stuff because they've been held back by individuality. And that is, kind of my job. A guy who doesn't have a lot of individuality. I know it sounds funny, but I don't have a lot of individuality. I failed in marriage. I failed in business. I failed in a lot of areas of life. So I broke down all of that individual fire to try to succeed. And I stopped being self-alienated. Came up with these Patreon videos of just, I got to talk to somebody about this material. And then made Kim Publishing the publishing company of Illuminism, and soon to be Eastern Illuminism, through Craig Williams. Now, we're Caucasian, so what? It's not a political party. It's not a Caucasian versus the rest of the world kind of thing. It's a ego versus all of humanity thing that we have to get aware of. So, It's part of the goal, it's part of the mission, is to preach this word, the good word. But it's hard because, we have to have humility to walk into the gate of where this material is. Anyway, so that was introducing the Becoming the Vision book, showing you a little bit more depth behind some of the sadhana and trying to get you to approach the material. I may go through more. I'm not sure. I don't want to have anybody, the time is about 9 minutes that people want to listen to me blabble. So I don't want to do an hour-long presentation to you. It's just to show you a little bit more information about the book, about the sadhana, about the amazing material behind the wisdoms, plural, and to try to give you some of that information so it'll help you on your spiritual journey. Thanks.